Hello there, Bogdan Bratis from Saspod here, and today we're gonna look into how to edit a podcast using Audacity. You've probably heard of Audacity. It is a great software, it is free of charge, it is open source, and is very well documented. But I wanted to make a tutorial as well on how to use Audacity to edit a podcast, because many tutorials are a little bit too complex or some of them lack some information for podcasters. So I just want to get into the tool myself and show you guys how to do it. We're not gonna get into each and every feature of Audacity, because for that we'll need to create a course. Obviously, I'm gonna upload more tutorials on Audacity. I'm not an Audacity expert myself, but I use Audacity from time to time, so I can show you what I would do if I would need to edit this podcast by myself for the first time. So you guys, new podcasters, this tutorial is for you. It is really simple, and I'm just gonna show you the features you need to get a show done. So let's get straight into it. The first thing you need to do is obviously download Audacity. Now, to download Audacity, what you need to do is go to Audacity, download. Here you'll find the website. It will pop up as the first result usually. Don't go on other websites. Some websites are, scams, or like they going to install other software along Audacity, so you don't want to do that. So audacityteam.org. This software has been around for ages, and you can have the Windows installation, Mac OS, or Linux, even Linux. So that's pretty cool. So let's say I'm on Windows, right? I go and then I install Audacity. Now you can go two ways here. You can install it as a one standalone application, which it used to be like this before, but now they recommend you to install it with Muse Hub, which is, I believe, a partnership between Audacity and Muse. So Muse Hub is a great platform for all sorts of other things, because Audacity, it is quite a simple software, but on Muse Hub you can find other things that you can incorporate in Audacity. For example, plugins. You can install plugins inside Audacity, and that's gonna give you more power in terms of what you can do with the software. So it's quite neat. So I recommend installing it with the Muse app. So you hit download, you're gonna download the Muse Hub, and then inside the Muse Hub, almost like you do on iTunes, you will be able to install Audacity. Now, I already have Audacity installed on my computer, so I'm not gonna go through the entire process. It's quite simple. And then what you can do is open Audacity, and the first thing you need to learn is how to import audio tracks in Audacity. So that's quite simple. I'm gonna use one of my clients' audio. So it is all about drag and drop. It's gonna take a little bit of time. Once that's uploaded, I think the first feature you'll need to know is how to zoom in and zoom out, and it's not as apparent as you may think. First thing first, you can do this via the buttons here, but I would definitely recommend you learn how to do it with your keyboard so you don't lose your time. So what you need to press on Windows is Control-1 for zooming in and Control-3 for zooming out. On a Mac, it's Command instead of Control, so Command-1 and Command-3. As you can see, you can zoom around. So now if you place your cursor anywhere, it's gonna start zooming in towards that cursor. So if you want to zoom at a certain section, let's say I want to zoom inside here, I can do this, right? So it is quite straightforward. Now, another thing you might want to know is how to move tracks left and right. So you can do this. As you can see, the track has multiple functions. So if you press in here, you're gonna be able to select or place the cursor at a certain position and then give it a play from there, or you can select from the top of the track and this little hand will appear, the grabber, and then you can grab this and move it left and right. Now, this is something you might want to do when you align the tracks for the first time. As you can see, this one maybe can go a little bit to the left, but from what I know, this recording happened on Riverside, so this is already synced. But if it's not synced for whatever reason, you can move it left and right. The next thing you might want to know is how to trim audio. Now, trimming is useful if you want to, for example, remove some parts from the beginning of the audio or the start or the end of the audio. Just want to make sure that I'm zoomed out all the way. Yeah. So as you can see, the audio comes in, you're able to basically trim the beginning of the audio, and what's nice is that it also snaps, so you don't misalign it in any way. So that's pretty nice. So the yellow line appears there, and that's quite good. It's an indication that both tracks are on the same beat. And then the same thing you can do at the end. You need to put your mouse on the top in there, and then you are able to trim it. So that's quite simple. Now, another thing you might want to know is how to clip gain. Now, clip gain is a feature that is used for controlling the volume on different parts of the audio. So not the entire volume, because what you can do, you can control the volume from here, right? So I have this at 0. So that means that this is the fader after all the effects and everything that were applied on this track. This is the fader that you can control before it actually goes to the master fader. We're not going to get into that very much, but the best way is to control the input level from the track itself. So for example, so as you can see, this part from here, it is quite loud. So what you can do, you can grab this particular piece of audio only, and you can apply clip gain to that only. So first thing first, to have 2 cuts, the way I did it here. So as you can see, I placed 1 cut in here and 1 cut in there. What you need to do is select, and then you can do Command I or Control I on Windows. This one is separate now. So what you can do is take this feature, for example. I think Audacity is called envelope tool, right? So you can minimize that, right? So this part of the audio now is quieter. So it's not clipping anymore, it's not distorting anymore. So you can go through the entire audio, and then while you're editing, you can get distorted, right? So you can clip gain the audio. Now, the next thing that you might want to know is like how to make all sorts of different cuts in audio in Audacity. So I just showed you one, which is splitting an audio. So basically we select one file, we select one file like this, one part of the file, and then we press Command I or Control I. And then we have these as separate event, and then we can start trimming from here, for example. We can do that. So that's not a problem. But the next thing you might want to know is how to delete something. And that is Control X on Windows or Command X on Mac. So we're just gonna apply this now. And as you can see, we deleted one part of the file, but there is a problem. You see, the audio starts to shift around because it starts to misalign. You see, this part from here comes closer, and this is how it's called on different digital audio workstations. More professional ones is called sleep mode. So the sleep mode has this behavior where you cut audio and then the audio starts to kind of like shift. So for example, if I would cut this part, these 2 sections will basically join together like that. This is quite useful if you work with only one piece of audio, but if you record on an interview, for example, 2 tracks, this may actually give you problems because certain things will start to misalign. So you can, if you want, you can select the two of them like that, and then you can obviously cut audio this way. But again, maybe you don't want to cut this part of the audio. So what you can do is there is another function, and to make that function is called Control Alt K, and that is going to delete the audio without shifting anything into the project. I know it is a little bit not as comfortable to press, but that's kind of like the shortcut you need to use. Control Alt K, or on Mac is Command Option K. So yeah, basically you can do this. You can select this part of the audio, and then you can do that. Let's say later on you want to remove this entire section. Because you want to remove this entire section, you can press, for example, Control X, right? You don't need this word. You do Control Alt K. So as you can see, it is quite powerful the way it works, and you can do this while you're listening to the audio. And then you can zoom in, zoom out, and then you can basically go through the entire audio like that. Sometimes you might want to duplicate certain things. So for example, you can click on the file and you can press Control D. That will duplicate this particular track. You can put that track anywhere else in the project. You can even, like, for example, let's say we delete this part and then we add this one in here. I'm just showing you the option is there. You might don't want to do this on a podcast, but you see how that is, you know, something that you can use. Maybe you want, you know, to work with music and you want to create an intro or something like that, and that's quite useful. And if you made a mistake, what you can do is Control Z. So you can go back to where you started. And then if you want to redo that, so let's say, oh, I went too far away. What you can do is Control Y. And again, for you guys on Mac, this is Command instead of Control. It's quite simple, right? So yeah, you can do basically anything when it comes to cutting, right? So this is pretty straightforward. I hope this one has been useful. So let's go forward. And the next thing you're gonna learn is how to use the volume automation. So I showed you a little bit with clip gain. And by the way, there is another way to get the track at a lower level. So what you can do is double click on the entire track. That's gonna select that track, and then go into the effect and then click on amplify. I have a huge list here. You may not have it like that, but you're gonna look for that option, and then you can basically decrease the volume, or you can even increase. And what's cool is that it will tell you if you start clipping. So if you press on allow clipping, that means the audio will start to get distorted. So it tries to protect you from clipping the audio, which is quite neat. You wait a little bit and there is the file. So that's pretty neat, right? So next one. Another thing you can do is, for example, you can add effects on each audio track. Now, when you hear the word effect, you think like, what type of effect is that? Is that a reverb or a delay, or what is that? Normally, effects are called plugins in other software. So a plugin is basically an extra software you can install on top of Audacity, and you can use that plugin to shape the audio in a certain way at a macro level. So you can basically add that effect on the entire track, and that will take place through the entire audio. Now, you can do that by adding an effect. Now, Audacity has certain effects installed, and we're gonna explore those in this video. If you go on Audacity, you're gonna find a compressor. This is quite hard to wrap your mind around. It has quite a few sliders, but I'm gonna do my best to explain it as easy as possible for you guys. So the first thing we have in here is the threshold. The threshold is basically the threshold where, for example, when the audio starts to exceed this threshold, right? So let's say we put the threshold at -20, right? And if the audio, and by the way, in audio we can go up to 0, right? So anything below, right, there's still audio, but we don't go positively normally on plugins like this, right? So the audio in here, it needs to be somewhere below 0. We call that 0 dBFS. So below 0, there will be peaks. For example, let's say in here. So if I go closer, you'll see that the audio starts to peak a little bit here and there. So it starts to become louder. So what the compressor does is I can tell the compressor, look, anytime this particular value is reached, what you need to do is compress this audio so it reaches a lower value. And you can do that basically on the entire track. So that means it will start evening out the peaks of the audio, and you're gonna get, you know, a piece of audio that is more balanced in terms of amplitude. So let's imagine I play in here. As you can see, when I play, you see that it starts to compress those peaks, and you can actually see that visually, so it helps you understand exactly what it does. Then you have a makeup gain. This is to basically make up for the gain you lost during compression. So for example, we are compressing around -3 dBs in here. We may need to add +3 dBs to get back to the same volume we came from. Then we've got here the knee width. This deals with how aggressive the plugin behaves. I'm not gonna go in detail with this one, but the higher the setting, the more compression is going to take place, and the faster the compression will kick in. Also the ratio as well, it is also a feature that deals with this specific function. The higher the ratio, the more aggressive the compression will be. So a lower ratio, what that means is the audio will not be as compressed. Even though you have the threshold, less compression will be applied on the audio. So then you've got the look ahead. This is again an advanced feature. You don't need to worry about this. Just leave it at 1. So what this does basically, the plugin is looking ahead of the audio and it reacts a little bit faster because of that. So you can have that functionality in place. And then you've got the attack and release. This is a little bit important, so I'm gonna try and explain it for you guys. So for example, if I have the attack at a low value, like for example 2 milliseconds, that means the compression will kick in as soon as the threshold is exceeded. However, if I have these at a longer time, so for example 67 milliseconds, that means that it will take about 67 milliseconds for the compression to kind of like start kicking fully. And for the release, what this is basically the faster the release, the faster the compression is going to recover. So the compression won't affect the audio anymore. And if you have this as a long release, for example, it will take a little bit of time until the compressor is not active anymore. So using these settings, you can actually manipulate the audio quite aggressively, because what you can do, for example, a slow attack, right? So 80 milliseconds means that the compressor will kind of allow some of the initial transients to go through it. And then also the release, if I have this fast release, it will mean that the compression will recover so fast that it will start to compress a lot very often. So for example, let me show you how this looks like. I'm just gonna give this a little bit of a lower release or lower threshold. So you see the line in here, it starts to compress almost every single word. But now if I, for example, slow down the release, and then I also fasten up the attack a little bit, and then obviously the threshold now needs to be higher a little bit. You see the actual compression is not as rapid, and it actually happens less, so from time to time. So it is worth experimenting with all these features. It's quite powerful. You also have an EQ, but the EQ in Audacity, it's extremely basic. So you can add a little bit more bass on the file or a little bit more treble. my opinion would be to actually get a plugin with this. Get a plugin, an EQ plugin that you can use. I'm going to put one in the description. You can download and you can install, and then you can use that plugin to shape the frequency of the audio a little bit more, and it will give you a better result. You can also add plugins on the master channel. So the master channel will affect all the tracks in Audacity, not just one, not just two, not just three, all the tracks that basically are present into the Audacity project. So on the master fader, what I would tend to use is, let me just move myself. I would tend to add in here the limiter. So the limiter is another type of compression that you can add on the file, and it will basically make sure that the audio is loud enough, but it doesn't exceed a certain target you set in here, right? So for example, let's say we put in here -5, so the peaks won't exceed this, and then we can lower the threshold, and the lower we have this, the louder the file is gonna become. So just gonna do this for you, and as you can see, it starts to compress a lot, but it won't go above -5. So it's what I call a brick wall limiter. But obviously you need to be careful, because the more you do it, then it starts to distort a little bit. And what you need to do, the goal here is to make it loud enough so it's basically at the right standards, and that is -16 LUFS, and I'll show you another plugin in another video on how to do that. But what you want to do is -16 LUFS, and then obviously you don't want a lot of compression to happen, but you want a little bit of compression, and you want the peak level to be at -3. So this is what I recommend when you stream podcasts, right? So you publish the audio as a podcast. So now let's imagine we finished the podcast. So we edited everything basically. What we need to do is export the audio. So you go at File, Export Audio, and then you choose to export it on your computer, and then you can give the file a name, and then you can choose to have it as mono, stereo. Always choose stereo, because if you have music, for example, in your Audacity project, that's gonna really benefit you. Music is usually stereo. If you have only dialogue, you can use mono, but to be on the safe side, stereo is fine. And then also what you want to do is choose the type of format. Usually hosting platforms will accept MP3 files, and if you upload, for example, a WAV file instead, you can upload it, but they will convert it for you. So it will always be MP3. And then you also might want to choose the quality. Now, I see that it says here excessive. My opinion is not excessive. So obviously choose 320 kilobits per second. This is going to be the best audio. Now, certain hosting platforms such as Buzzsprout, they do actually drop it down to even 96 kilobits per second. But other platforms, for example, Saspod, they actually keep the 320 kilobits per second and distribute the audio where possible in that format. So then you can hit export, and that's gonna render the file for you as MP3, and it will take a little bit of time for that to finish. And once that's done, you can upload it on all the platforms and basically amaze your listeners. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please don't forget to like this video. It is really important, so we show YouTube that we produce high quality content, so our channel grows. Also, subscribe. You're gonna find more and more information about podcasting. We are going to give you loads of tips and tricks about how to start a podcast, how to monetize your podcast, what tools to use for your podcast. So all this stuff is gonna be available on this channel. So definitely subscribe. And if you have any questions, please leave them down in the comments. I'm going to answer each and every question. and yeah, give you guys a lot of value. And again, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.